Give you an idea for those of you who haven't been out there. This is me. That's my avatar. That's one of my students. Okay, that's one of the things you got to get ready for right off the bat. Is you're going to have students who may look quite different, you know, and they have an opportunity. They can look more normal, you know, or they can look like Darth Vader's been run over by a truck. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, one of the Netherlands participants, who was about a 2-meter tall athletic guy, his avatar was Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, now I don't know, I don't want to find out what he had in mind, you know, but it was clearly not a representation of himself. So, you know, that's one of the issues that you have out there, is that you've got a lot of variety. And it can be good, bad, and indifferent, okay? It gives people an opportunity to kind of put a little bit of distance between themselves and the way they, you know, might want to project themselves and interact, you know. But it also creates some uncertainty, which again can be either positive or negative. There's lots of things you can do out there in creating environments, and we've used one called the Alpine Executive Center, which has group spaces and rooms and ways of interacting out there, as well as it has things like ski slopes and skating rinks, and you know, so it's a place where people can have some, you know, fun as well as do things that are constructive. And it's an actual business. He runs it as a business. It's in the top 10 business sites out there. We've been looking at it from an educational perspective. So you can see immediately what happens. This is actually the guy who created it. He was kind of blown over by the first time we had a whole bunch of students in there, you know, doing everything that students do, including flying around the room and, you know, generally engaging. It opens up a lot of opportunities for different kinds of activities, as well as similar activities. You know, you can create things that are very similar. And if you look at some of the sites that are out there, some of the university environments look like the university that they're representing. Other environments are out there in space somewhere, okay? And they're very different. They're very different. And so you can create the kind of environment that you're interested in. One of the things that we've been doing particularly is trying to create some tool support inside these environments that can help us with different aspects of a group process. In the case I mentioned, these virtual teams, they have to brainstorm issues. They have to generate ideas about what they're going to do. You know, then they have to come to consensus on that, you know, scattered around the world, 3 different continents, you know, and then be able to move the whole thing forward. So we've tried to create some tools that can help them brainstorm and organize things by moving it around spatially, you know, in this context, as well as having a text environment. And voting, where they can vote by going and standing on squares. And they can move around, and they can see the degree to which there is consensus, you know, not only by where they are physically, but statistically you can, of course, represent how much variance there is on a particular, you know, topic of interest in a multidimensional space. So you can do a lot of different kinds of things that are trying to make use of this combination of space and place. You know, the place being representing something which they can say, okay, this looks sort of familiar, but a space, and that it's very different. Now, part of what we're looking at here as well is you know, this is pretty ordinary kind of idea generation and organization, but you could do the whole thing around a planet system, okay? And we've played with that too, where you have planets and stars and constellations and things are all out there. Okay, and that's an interesting way to get students to engage and to help them organize things. So lots of things that can be done out there. Facebook, as we saw from the show of hands here, is much better known. Okay, wildly popular with students. Okay. And even Li Ka-shing, you know, has reportedly invested US $60 million in Facebook. Maybe not much money for him, but that's a big, that's a pretty sizable, piece of money. There's concerns in Facebook over things like privacy and intellectual property rights, and Facebook itself is struggling with this, as are all of these kinds of environments now that are trying to engage people in various ways, but at the same time try to promote themselves and sustain their self. Things like Facebook and Second Life right now are pretty challenging to administrators. Okay? There's very few universities that allow full access to these kinds of environments from their regular computing services. Does anybody have one? I mean, I have to get kind of special permission and go bend a few arms and constrain it to an area and promise to be good, to use it in our place. Because they're not much used by educators yet, and yet, I would say is the key word here. This is something that over the next 10 years, I think it will become commonplace, one way or the other. The students are already there. Okay, the students are out on Facebook. Yeah, they're beyond the 80% level right now. Okay, they're there. And guess what? Do you think they would access their course material more times during a day, or their Facebook account? Okay, we don't win. Okay, they'll go out to their Facebook account several times a day. Right? I've seen the young ones. Well, maybe there's some educational bits that we can get out there, and so that's part of the thing that we're exploring right now, is we're looking at some of these social networks, and we're looking at how things group around there, and we're looking at using them, for example, for our incoming students. And clearly, this is an easy one. You've got a new group of students coming in every fall. They're coming in from all over the world. Set up a Facebook community for them that allows them to begin to get to know each other. That's an easy one. Bringing it into the classroom in terms of team activities, that's tougher. That's more difficult. But they've all got an account, and they can all create groups out there, and they can all use it, certainly for their self-driven, kinds of things. The challenge here really becomes, as much as anything, what do we do? Now, when we go out and we do focus groups with our students, and we say, what do you think about having some educational use of Facebook? First thing that happens is they kind of like going, what? Like, that's not what it's for. And I say, well, no, wait a minute. He said, you're already doing socializing out there. Isn't that an important part of your educational process? Well, yeah, said, would there be some things that might be useful to you? They said, well, it'd be nice to know when the professors change the exam or move the space, or, okay. What about other things? Be careful. Don't get in our space. So we're trying to figure out right now, basically, what kinds of things we can kind of bring from an educational perspective into that space without essentially having them run. Okay. So it presents an interesting opportunity, I think. So research opportunities in social networking and education, I think there's a lot we can do, and there's a lot that's available there. One of the interesting things to me is the mix of utilitarian versus hedonic, work versus play. Okay, and you find that people are really